My name is Councillor Sarah Trotter and I am the Chairman of this committee. To my right is our Vice Chairman, Councillor Barry Dobson, and to my left is Amy Pride, who will be looking after us in Democratic Services. I extend my warm welcome and wishes to all committee members, cabinet members, officers, together with, I see our representatives from Alliance SK, possibly caught in traffic, but I think that, I wish to crack on and get through the agenda. It's a fairly full one today and an important one. Okay, just a bit of housekeeping. Please ensure your mobile phones are switched off or turned to silent. I've not been notified of a fire alarm practice, but should the alarm sound, can we please move swiftly to the closest exit and make your way outside to the front of this building on the green outside, located on St Peter's Hill. If you wish to ask a question or make a comment, please can I request that you indicate to the Vice Chairman, Councillor Barry Dobson, by raising your hand. As you can see, we have a busy and full agenda today, and I welcome scrutiny questions, but please can I ask that members keep questions brief and to the point, thus allowing those addressed to respond fully. I also remind non-members of this committee, I don't think we've got any yet. I see we've got Councillor Linda Wotton at the back. Welcome, Linda.
She's not going to take part.
She's not going to take part. She's going to watch and assess. Oh, good afternoon, Councillor Baxter. Yeah, if you, I'll just give you a minute to get settled. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'll just repeat the last couple of lines. I said, if you wish to ask a question or make a comment, please can I request that you indicate to the Vice Chairman, Councillor Barry Dobson, by raising your hand. As you can see, we have a busy and full agenda today, and I welcome scrutiny questions, but please can I ask that members keep questions brief and to the point, thus allowing those addressed to respond fully. Welcome, Councillor Moran. I also remind non-members of the committee that it is at my discretion as chairman that a question is allowed. The meeting will be recorded and the recordings retained in accordance with the Council's document retention policy. This meeting can be watched as a live stream or at a later date via the SKDC YouTube channel. Thank you. I'll just give Councillor Moran a second, it's fine, and then we'll go to the agenda.
Right, I'm on it.
Are you on it?
Yeah.
Good, jolly good. So if we move to item 1, comments from members of the public. Amy, have we got any members of the public online or with us today?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We haven't received any comments from members of the public. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. And to item 2, apologies for absence and replacement members. I think we've got a full house, which is great. Thank you very much. Our meeting before Christmas, really good to see. And obviously welcome Councillor Baxter as leader of Alliance SK. So, item 3, declarations of interest. Are there any members who have an interest to declare? Nope. You can also declare these during the meeting as well. Thank you. So we move to item 4, minutes from the meeting held on the 5th of October 2022. For accuracy, we will check each page. So if you can refer firstly to page 3. And it's 3 to 16 in your agenda pack. So I will go through each page, and if you could just indicate if there's anything you want to highlight. So page 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Good afternoon, Councillor Dilks. I'm just going through the minutes at the moment. Okay. I forgot where I am. We'll go 7, 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, 12. Yep, Councillor Cleaver, page 12.
Thank you. I note that it says regarding affordable housing that there will be a discussion after the meeting. Can we have an update on what happened in that discussion, please?
Yeah, just so page 12.
Page 12. So I can't find it now. I'm looking for it. Can I? Or is it under the work programme? I think.
We'll go to.
Yeah, I know it's going to come up later.
I think it's on the.
Just didn't want to miss it at this point.
Okay.
I beg your pardon, sorry if I got the wrong page number.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. It's
oh,
like
yes, sorry,
third,
following meeting.
Third paragraph down, isn't it?
The Assistant Director of Housing confirmed that the report on effectiveness on policies on affordable housing was a planning matter. This would be discussed following the meeting.
Okay.
So I know we're going to look at it because it's on the unscheduled list for the future work programme. So
yes,
I know it'll
it
get covered off at some point.
Yeah, we've got that noted. Should we come back to that, Craig, when it sort of comes into the flow of the agenda? Brilliant. Okay. So page 13, 14, 15, and finally 16. Okay, if we're all happy with that, please can I have a proposer and a seconder for the minutes, please? Councillor Dobson, proposer, and I'll take Councillor Dixon Warren, I saw him first, as a seconder. Thank you. If I could have a show of hands, all in favour? Those, yeah, or unanimous, lovely. So we will move to item 5, which is updates on actions agreed at the previous meeting. This can be found on pages 17 to 19 on your agenda pack. So I'll just get our place. So if we just have a look through them, and if there's any comments from committee members. Councillor Cleaver.
Thank you. Just on a couple of the items. First of all, on the Action Ukrainians, could someone just clarify a little bit more about the status after 6 months of the Ukrainians who are with us? I presume that they have indefinite leave to remain in the UK, although the thing was initially for 6 months. Is the settlement scheme continuing? Can they indefinitely get another 6 months with a different family, or?
Yeah.
And also the update that's in the agenda pack doesn't mention the sort of, apart from one family being rehoused by us, there's no other mention of any numbers of people. So if we get a little bit more detail on that, I'd be grateful.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Cleaver. I understand Craig Spence, Director of Housing, wishes to comment.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'll ensure that we get some additional numbers forthcoming to the committee after this meeting. At present, the hosting arrangements are continuing. We've completed 171 inspections on properties within South Kay. I think the overriding thing to take away for this committee is the fact that SK remains the largest host district within Lincolnshire, and we have the lowest number of breakdowns between hosts and families, which is probably the biggest positive to take away.
Thank you, Craig. Really positive news. I know in our community we're housing a number of Ukrainians who are the latest influx. They've come after the 6 months, so that's great. Thank you for that question.
Can I just say thank you for that? It's good to have some good news.
Good news before Christmas. We're all up for that.
Yeah. And just a second thing, on the housing working group, again in the report, it mentions that there will be an update on what's happened in the housing working group at future meetings. Is there anything to report for this meeting? I'm not attended, obviously. Has there been one since the last meeting, Craig?
Yes, there has been another meeting since the last meeting. I can provide a verbal update on that alongside the regulatory update.
Yep, please. That'd be great. Sorry, Councillor Reid, I'm aware you had your hand raised.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Just to add to the Ukraine situation, just to reiterate that after Stoke Rochford was closed, a week later it was opened, and it's common knowledge that a letter was written of representation to the welfare and all the associated issues with people staying there and how isolated it was, and the disappointment that it was reopened. And I understand that the current contract is for 12 months, so it goes beyond the 6-month period of time. We're all well aware of the situation in Skegness and what their scenario is, but that's how it is here amongst the other provisions that are made. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just take a question from Councillor Westrop. She just had her hand raised first, and then I'll take the other questions. Thank you.
Hello. I'm now slightly confused because originally I thought that the Ukrainians were here for 6 months, and then the funding, I don't know what happens to the funding after that. And also, I thought Stoke Rochford was Albanians and refugees as opposed to Ukrainians. Am I confused?
Sorry, it's probably me confusing, so I do beg your pardon. Thank you.
Just to confirm, the hosting arrangements are continuing to be funded through central government. We're still waiting for some firm direction and clarification on the timescales of that, so that probably answers Councillor Cleaver's question to a certain degree as well. But we are obviously continuing to monitor those host and kind of family tensions on a weekly basis. We do have a funded worker that's now working with those families to proactively keep them with their hosts. So the funding arrangements are ongoing until we get further clarification from government.
Yeah, I just want to add, as we've got Carol and Val in the room, we actually attended Celebrate the Nations, didn't we, a number of weeks ago, and there was certainly plenty of Ukrainians, Afghans, plenty, such a wonderful function. So I just want to make note on record, you know, they're being welcomed into our town, and it was a fabulous event, and I'm sure they'll be having it next year, so let's all make sure we can get there. Thank you. Sorry. Councillor Baxter.
I was going to make a similar point to Councillor Westrop that I think and Councillor Reid has said that he's conflating the issue of Ukrainians with the people at Stoke Rochford. I wonder if that might be considered as an announcement or update from the Leader of the Council, Cabinet members or Head of Paid Service. It probably would fit better at that point in the agenda, would it not?
I'm not sure about that, unless there's any particular opinion within the committee. No. OK, I'll move on to Councillor Moran.
Sorry, Councillor Reid mentioned Stoke Rochford. We've all heard various stories about what's gone on there, but he said everybody's well aware what happened at Skegness. Not me. What happened at Skegness?
Yeah, do you want to come out? I'm aware that Skegness is housing in hotels refugees, is that correct? So possibly do you want to build on that, Councillor Reid?
Yes, it was on the news last night when, OK, fine. when Matt Gorman was asked a question in the House about, because he'd had representation from a very packed audience of, I don't know, an awful lot of people in the room, probably 200 hoteliers, this, that and the other, with the impact on Skegness and the surrounding areas on hotels and provision for other people other than this accommodation, and to seek an assurance that there wouldn't be any more provision made there at the moment, because the infrastructure they felt was absolutely stretched to capacity, and that's what the question was about. And similarly, we don't want to find ourselves with any further coping situations here either.
Did they not ask us beforehand?
Sadly not.
I'm aware that Councillor Dilks, as a non-committee member, wants to ask a question. Is there any more committee member observations or questions on the action sheet? No? Okay, Councillor Dilks, I understand.
Madam Chairman, thank you. It's just if I can be helpful on the this Ukrainian situation and the Stoke Rochford situation. And this is information, you know, obviously we get at the County Council. I had a briefing on Tuesday from the Chief Executive at Lincolnshire County Council. And as Robert and others I'm sure will know, but to help Councillor Westrop particularly, no, there are no Ukrainians at Stoke Rochford. That isn't what Stoke Rochford's being used for. It's for other refugees. There are a number of children and mainly, I think, some single women there. But it's not Ukrainians. The Ukrainian system is a separate system, and it's where people have volunteered to have a Ukrainian in their accommodation, and they are entitled to a fee per month. What's happening at the moment is there is a wait. The government has not yet announced that the 6 months will be formally extended. There is hope that it will be, and there's expectation that it will be, but there has been some press speculation as to you know, whether it would end. I don't think it will end personally, and there has been some speculation as to whether that allowance will actually increase or stay the same. And I understand, Robert might help, that the announcement is expected before the end of this week, i.e. tomorrow. But that's my understanding. If that's helpful, Madam Chairman, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Very helpful. Any information about this is spot on, so thank you. Right, I'm going to move to item 6, announcement updates from the Leader of the Council, Cabinet members or Head of Paid Service. I've not been made aware of any announcements, so I'll move swiftly on to item 7. Sorry, Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. The point of that agenda item is that we can hold Cabinet members to account for what they've been doing between the meetings. I'm really surprised that there are no updates on either the grounds maintenance contract, which affects the HRA, on the depot, which affects the HRA, on the Stoke Rochford situation that we've just discussed under a different agenda item. Are the Cabinet really, have they really got nothing to report other than what's on this agenda?
Yeah, noted, Councillor Baxter. Yeah, Councillor Reid, do you want to make a brief comment?
I'd like to make a brief comment in saying, first of all, that when we do actually discuss through today's agenda, I just go very quickly through the housing member workshop as a very quick checklist as to what we discussed there and what we are discussing here, so that we can do a checks and balances on that. So we have got the members' inquiries, which I think is in your pack today, compliance update I'm going to talk about, the mould housing situations, there was a verbal update on that, voids and the number of void turnarounds, we spoke about that. The integrated housing management system is on track. The Earlsfield, there's an update on that is ongoing. We are now in the D camp, and there is an update every week, and the update is notified toward members. Turning on to the others, the grounds maintenance contract, where the HRA is concerned, to answer, is currently going out to consultation to our tenants so that we can take that forward. The depot isn't really my portfolio. Well, it is under property, but I'll just come back if Adam wants to speak on that first. And Stoke Rochford we have actually spoken about. So, yeah, given the opportunity, understood. Thank you for the reminder. I hope that has been expansive for you. Thank you.
Councillor Stokes.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. No, I mean, I've got nothing to add to what Councillor Reid has just gone through. I think it's a very full agenda today, and he's got a lot of items on it. This item is on every committee, as you're well aware, Councillor Baxter. This was put on very recently. I think it was in July. I think we discussed at FEDCO. And as you're aware, at the County Council, when this comes up, not every meeting does cabinet members or exec members or any officers bring up items. They don't do it at every meeting. On this occasion, Councillor Reid has given a very full update on what's going on with this committee, as will others at other scrutiny committees.
Thank you both. I'll just take one last question from you before I move on in relation to this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm relatively new county councillor, so I haven't yet been to a county council meeting where there hasn't been an update from the relevant member. I'm grateful that Councillor Reid, after prompting, has come up with various different things. Lots to get into there. Certainly, I for one had no idea that how residents were being consulted about grounds maintenance at the moment, and I wonder if we could be sent details of the consultation, what it's about and what the questions are. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. Moving on to item 7, housing...
Point of information, Chairman.
Yep, sure.
They are going to be published in Skyline, but I'm happy that they're circulated to you as well. That's no problem.
Yeah. Thank you. So if we could move to item 7, is the housing got my teeth all in. Compliance update. This report seeks to update the committee on actions to ensure regulatory compliance of the council's social housing landlord function following the non-compliance notice issued by the regulator of social housing. If you refer to pages 21 to 28 of your agenda pack, this report sets out, and this is something that we have at each meeting, that of rural affairs, that the committee notes the latest position following the ongoing meetings with the regulator of social housing, and that the committee receives a further update report as its next scheduled meeting. Please note this report is for noting only. I will ask if the report can be introduced by Councillor Robert Reid, Cabinet Member for Housing and Property, and then we'll ask our Acting Assistant Director of Housing to detail on the report. Thank you, Councillor Reid.
Thank you for the opportunity, Madam Chairman. I'm pleased to be able to introduce the progress report on our journey to full compliance with the regulator of social housing home standard. Firstly, I will focus on the landlord health and safety issues as usual. The Council's Chief Executive and Acting Director of Housing have continued their monthly regulatory meetings, and indeed the next one is on Friday. The figures attached, as in Appendix 1 to the report, shows changes within the performance, and measures have been made to ensure these are moving towards a higher compliance percentage. Good news is that we have now appointed an external auditor to undertake an audit to satisfy the regulator with a view to having the notice removed. And I can further confirm that the auditors started last Tuesday, so we're now in that review. We continue to work with tenants who are not cooperating with us in relation to the servicing of gas appliances, electrical inspections required in their homes, stressing that it is these inspections are for their safety. It is not an intrusion into how they live or the conditions of how they look after their property. That's their home. It is for their safety, and I endorse that from the Housing Working Group, who concur with that situation. I'd also like to highlight the progress that has been made, and there will continue to be updates to the committee. As we know, this is a standard item on the agenda in all seriousness of the situation. And when I'm looking forward to hopefully the relaxation of the regulator of conditions, we are hoping this might be streamlined in that it will conclude at the same time as we will have looked into the whereby which the Riverside HSE report is such that there is no penalties to us. There is an implication as to a meeting on asbestos, and we're hoping that this will be endorsed at the same time by the audit, so that should be timely at the same time. So we are open to taking any questions which we will value from members of the Scrutiny Committee. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. So I open that up. Do we have any questions in relation to the report, please? Yeah, Councillor Cleaver.
Thank you. On paragraph 3.4, it mentions the stock condition survey, which is clearly a very, very important piece of work because it's not been completed since 2009. Can you tell us when the stock condition survey was completed, please? And when will its contents be reported to Scrutiny? It says that the survey has been concluded, has now concluded, and analysis of the findings continues. So if we haven't then finished analysing it, it concerns me that we don't really then know how much money to put into next year's budget for the capital programme. So I'd be happy to hear an explanation of how that all fits together. On paragraph 3.5, I must admit that rant and rave feedback is something I had not previously heard of. But notwithstanding that, I notice it says we continue to see overall satisfaction of 4.5. Sorry, we continue to see. Sorry, forget that one. Sorry, I'd misread something. Forgive me.
Do you want me to get Craig
and I want to come back on the action plan later. Thank you.
I'll let. Oh, sorry, Councillor Reid, are you wishing to respond to Richard?
I wish to be open and transparent, and I welcome the questions, and it's good to talk broadly across all of our housing issues. Craig will tell you more about the stock condition report, and I should think Adam will probably concur with me and confirm that the findings of the stock condition report are in preparation for our budgetary round for next year, and indeed I know there is a paper coming to Cabinet from absolute memory. I think it's £6.2 million for windows, doors, fire doors and various other things that will be coming up on that. Just to answer the question, the rant and rave is something that we put in at an early stage of actually being able to take some customer feedback, as that's the way that the world works today, and it is customer feedback on repairs, on our repair service that we've done, which we welcome. I do honestly think that this might well be superseded down the line when we get into the integrated housing management system, which I have said still is on a green light, and we are hoping to go live on the 1st of April. And indeed, the other thing along with that is we are going to have a members' workshop to demonstrate this after Christmas as well. So may I suggest I hand over to Craig. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Chair. So just to answer around stock condition, we undertook the stock condition surveys from June 2021 through to April of this year. We managed to complete 78% of our stock in that period. All of that information is now within our Apex asset management system, and it has been used to inform our capital programmes moving forward. The plan moving forward from that is that we will continue to do 20% of our stock each year, so that we've always got a 5-year refresh on all of that stock condition data to ensure that all of our decisions and our capital spending is brought into line with that. So I think one of the papers later on around the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund, the funding bid will explain a little bit more of how we've used that data already. But the underlying responsibility of that stock condition data is to inform our HRA business plan, which will be coming to the next Rural Overview and Scrutiny panel in February in draft format. So yeah, I hope that answers the stock condition. And from the rant and rave, a couple of things I'd just add on that. It's a transactional satisfaction mechanism. So when our customers receive a responsive repair, they'll receive either an email or a text message asking them to feedback on their satisfaction with that. We use that both on repairs and for the quality of our properties when we're signing up our tenants. And the overriding message from that is that when we're out there and we're conducting the repairs, they're genuinely satisfied. So 4.5 out of 5 people are satisfied with that. The only negative feedback is sometimes the amount of time that it takes us to undertake our repairs. But again, that's something that we're looking to improve.
Thank you, Craig. Yeah, I'll take the next question from Councillor Moran. Just while Councillor Reid mentioned it, for our next meeting, it's on our action plan, but we're hoping to have a demonstration of the new housing management system within the meeting. So, you know, positive news about that. It's on track. So, yeah, Councillor Moran.
Yeah, on the rant and rave, I just wondered what percentage of people who've had a repair or moved into a property actually complete, you know, actually feed back to us?
So far we've had 738 responses since the end of May, so that works out about between 8 to 10% of actual kind of interactions. So it's not as high as we'd like it to be, but it's far more information than we've been gathering previously. And it does provide us with that understanding of how we are performing. So we do get negative feedback as well, which we flag up, and we take that up with the individuals to understand the situations around that.
That 10%'s really disappointing, isn't it? That people aren't, when they're given the opportunity to feed back. I don't know what else you do to encourage them to do it, though. I mean, if you can only ask them so many times, can't you? All right, thank you.
I think if I just balance that, I completely agree that 10%'s a little bit disappointing, but I think when you consider we had 29.7% return on our full tenant survey earlier this year, the big listen, I think that maybe they felt that their voice was heard there, but we just want to make sure that we give our tenants that opportunity to feedback if they want to. And I think, generally speaking, the fact that we're not getting too many negative feedbacks, because a lot of people will only exercise their thoughts when they have something negative to say. I think that we need to take that as a positive. But ultimately, the message is that we're listening to 738 people that we haven't listened to previously.
Thank you, Craig. Councillor Reid, and then I'll move to Councillor Wootton.
Very quickly, just to say, I do appreciate the point that Councillor Moran makes about publicising rant and rave. We have put it in the Skyline, and we have done it identified through the tenant liaisons group as well. So, you know, that is the two vehicles of its usage. And considering that we didn't have any review some time before, you know, I'm pleased it's working, albeit I recognise that it could work better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Councillor Wooden?
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chairman. If I could make a comment on the whole report, I welcome this report, particularly welcome on Appendix Item 3, the back, the clear direction of travel to excellence, which is really good. I congratulate the Chief Executive and also Craig Spence and the Cabinet member Rob Reid for their hard work they've done in getting so far into this report. The question I have is on 3.9.2, talking about gas. Can you tell me how many people have been to court and had the warrants executed, and how many people are outstanding for the inspection of their property to date? Thank you.
Thank you. Craig?
Yep. Thank you for the question. Every month we have a court session. We're limited to taking 20 of those cases each month. So each month we have 20 cases. All of the warrants that we are granted in court then are executed. I can give you an update that the end of November's performance, we're down to 24 non-compliant properties from 40 in the previous month. So we are seeing that warrant process is obviously brings us to fruition. But we do take 20 each month.
If I come back, Chairman, can you please tell me then, are you finding any properties that are hard to get into completely, or empty, or been sublet to somebody else? Thank you.
We haven't identified any that are in the process of being sublet, no. What we are finding is that we have a core of our tenant group which are probably a little bit more reticent than others with regards to allowing us access. So as far as that's concerned, we are regularly reinforcing the need for them to allow us access through Skyline and through regular tenant interaction. It's not alien, kind of within kind of social housing for you to have that element of people. But where we are serving notice this year, those notices will still be current when we come round to the same process next year.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I'm going to ask one more question. Are you still engaging with shelter accommodation residents? Thank you.
Yes, our shelter housing workshops are continuing, so we're still continuing to deliver those. We do at least one event each month across the district, and I think by February we will have visited every social housing complex within the last 12 months.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Do I have any more questions on this item? I think... Okay.
Come back on the contract in a minute, because I found the relevant information just to actually clarify the situation. Thank you.
Happy?
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Cleaver. That's lovely. So I mentioned the contract awards in relation to social landlord services, and it will be coming to Cabinet on the 13th of December. And there are three tranches to this, one of which is choice-based lettings, which we'll be talking about later. The second is the residential windows and door replacements, which I mentioned. And just for clarity, the amount that we're looking to have approved for windows and doors with nationwide following compliant procurement will be a contract for 4 years, 2 + 1 + 1, and up to the value of £6 million. Just referring back to choice-based lettings, we have gone through a procurement process for that, and we're looking to a contract period of 4 years, 3 + 1, to the value of £112,000. And I'm sure members will be very interested in that we're looking to approve the award of a contract for energy efficiency measures with E.ON following compliant procurement. This contract will be for 2 years and 6 months, being 30 months, and the contract value could be up to £8 million, and it's dependent upon the social housing decarbonisation fund bid outcome, whereby which that will be hopefully a match funding that we should hear about in January or February, and it sort of equates to very nearly half each. And I can assure the Scrutiny Committee and indeed all members that our apportionment of this has got provision within our HRA reserves. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Just, I note that on item 9 we have got a report on energy efficiency grant funding, so we can go into it in full detail. Yeah, any more committee members? Councillor Westrop, thank you.
Thanks,
And now move to Councillor
Just a couple of silly questions, really.
Never a silly question.
On the rant and rave, is it only feedback? Because I get really furious with having to give feedback to anybody these days for work that's done. And the other thing, is the rant coming in for people who want things done and haven't yet actually had a response, or don't know how long it's going to take to get their window fixed or a door done?
Thank you. Craig will respond to that question.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's purely a transactional satisfaction, so it's when somebody's had a visit from one of our members of staff or when they've actually had an interaction completed. It's not a complaint. I mean, it sounds like a complaints kind of forum with it saying rant and rave, but basically it's a national company that deliver this. We were the first social landlord to take it up in the UK. So basically, if you think about Amazon and kind of that interaction that you get back from them around how satisfied you are with the delivery, it's very much along those lines. So it's post-interaction with ourselves.
How long does it take for somebody to actually put in a complaint to it actually being responded to and hopefully repaired?
Okay, I mean, obviously our complaints procedure is the same as the council's complaints procedure, so obviously we've got our customer feedback policy which was adopted, I believe, just over a year ago. Generally speaking, all of our tenant complaints go through that process. Obviously, we are still dealing with a repairs backlog with regards to kind of some of our low-level non-urgent repairs, but all of our emergency repairs are still attended to within that 48-hour period. So where possible, we will try to expedite the work. So we are, trying to do some works over weekends and things at present, where we've got our workforce taking on overtime and things like that to enable some of those repairs to be completed in a speedier fashion. But we are where we are with repairs, and to be perfectly honest, we don't get that many complaints in with regards to timescales. It's more a little bit of dissatisfaction that somebody has to possibly wait 4 to 5 weeks to have something repaired.
Thank you, Craig. I'll take 2 more questions of Councillor Cleaver and then finally from Councillor Baxter, and then we'll move on to the next item. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. To be honest, I'm still not clear on the juxtaposition between a statement that we haven't yet finished analysing the condition survey and the fact that we're already putting jobs out to tender to pay for what has been found. So could I please ask that this committee has a full report on what the stock condition survey has shown up and what action is being taken on it, because that seems to me as a matter of routine that should happen every time there's a stock condition survey done. It seems to be a normal scrutiny item, that whenever this is done, every time we do the 20%, we see what's been found, what it's going to cost us, and also what we learn from it about preventive maintenance for the future going forward. On the Appendix 2, can I just ask a couple of questions? On the page, now forgive me, this is very small on my screen, HIAPS, on the item that says lack of strategy and policy framework. I see that's still amber. And I'm seeing no change, no change, no change, no change reading across the columns, which rather begs the question as to why it's taking so long to sort that particular item out. And on the final page of the, no, not the final page of the appendix, sorry, these aren't numbered, on 1.2b, we have draft repairs policy, and that's still not been completed, or won't be completed until April 2023, which is worrying. I say again, reading across from the amber square there, no change, no change, no change. Initial drafts to be shared internally, Q3 22-23, and it now says draft policy to be taken to Cabinet not until April next year. So, which again begs the question as to, is that going to hold us up from being taken out of special measures? And if not, by the way, when are we going to be? When do you expect us to be taken out of special measures? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure Craig wants to respond to those questions. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. With regards to the policy framework, at the last count, I think we've got something like 21 or 22 policies that we needed to refresh. Cabinet, we bought our domestic abuse policy, our recharge policy recently, and we're trying to bring a couple of those policies forward at every Cabinet or every other Cabinet. So I think the timeline on there, it does look like it's taking a long time. I appreciate that, but when you look at the breadth of work that we are dealing with there, I think it's probably understandable when you consider all of the other projects that we've got ongoing. With regards to the repairs policy, that's not to say that we're not making progress with the repairs. The actual policy is going to be very much aligned with our new housing management system and the timescales that we build into that. That's due to launch in April, so we want to finalise that policy at the same time. So there is a lot of work going on there. And coming back to the regulatory requirements and when we may be able to see those lifted, Councillor Reid advised that we had the external auditors commence their piece of work earlier this week. That's a 4 to 6 week turnaround with regards to that audit. Upon the receipt of the outcome of that audit, that will then go to the regulator for them to assess and look at to ensure that they have kind of assurance that the figures that we've been supplying are correct, and that if they are correct, though, then that would then see the notice lifted. I think we've been in a position for the past 8 to 9 months that the actual figures that we've been presenting would have been acceptable to the regulator and they would not have led to a regulatory notice being applied, but we just need to provide assurance to the regulator that those facts and figures are correct. And behind the scenes there, we've also had 14 procedural documents recently implemented around the way that we manage our compliance internally, which will then underpin that documentation too. I hope that provides.
Thank you. Do you want to come back on that, Councillor Reid?
Well, I'd like to help answer the questions and obviously support Craig. But, and when we get a catalogue of questions at once, it's very important to just try and catch them. The stock condition report, amongst anything else, is a living document. Okay, we, at the last count in my head, I think we were up to about 82% of all properties had been done within the contractual term. And of course, those that haven't will be are being compiled as we speak. It was a mammoth task. And let's remember, Councillor Cleaver, we didn't have a stock condition report to work on since, if I remember rightly, 2009, which you probably wouldn't be aware of. And it's very important that we have a stock condition rolling programme of every 5 years. To answer the question where we are with special measures, we are hoping that the audit will be completed before the end of January, and I'm hoping that that will satisfy the housing regulator, and fingers crossed that we have covered the length and breadth of all the issues. It might be that he might find something that we haven't, but we have good reason to believe, hand on heart, that we've done our best to be compliant. So we're looking forward to a favourable outcome, hopefully by the end of January. Thank you very much. To Just to go back on the other questions in the Housing Improvement Action Plan that we referred to with no actions, if I can refer to the lack of strategy and policy framework that was mentioned, I think part of this undertaking will actually come, will be addressed quite well when we get into the housing management system that's going live in April. And quite timely, what Craig and I have identified when we went to the housing conference early in the year in Manchester is that there is a software package which is compatible with Arion that would undertake our stock condition surveys, and so that we can get one loaded to the other, and subject to a return of office into the next term, once I've got this integrated management system working on our housing transitions and knowledge of our tenants and what situations are, which includes revs and benefits, and it includes rent accounts. It goes right across. Then we're looking to actually get this stock condition report. What's the name of that? Apex, I should remember. The Apex system that we can run alongside it. So, and you know, it's lovely to share this information because it also gives people, you know, members, particularly Scrutiny, knowledge of the journey of ongoing delivery. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Craig.
Yeah, just really quickly, just to kind of provide you some reassurance, Councillor Cleaver, the data has been loaded in with regards to our stock condition. One of the KPIs that you're going to be reviewing in one of your later reports today identifies our stock condition decent home standard at 94.49%. That's been taken directly from the stock condition survey and from our Apex asset management system. So please don't think that we're not doing anything with that, but obviously whenever we're undertaking capital improvements in some of our properties at Void, we're having to update that data all the time. So I think that I will make sure that we have a report forthcoming around kind of our future investment requirements, but that will be in line with our HRA business plan.
Thank you, Craig, for those full and very informative updates. I'll finally take question, Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very pleased to hear from Councillor Reid that the condition survey is a living document. I don't know who was in charge of this authority between 2009 and 2020 when that document appeared to be stone dead, but great progress, and I really appreciate the work of the officers in getting us back to the point where we can start talking to auditors about getting out of special measures. In terms of the timescale, it was reported in the minutes of the last meeting, in response to a question I asked about the timescale, that the audit report would be received by late November 2022. We found out this month that it's been started on the 1st of December 2022, and hopefully it might be finished by the end of January. And last month we were told that even with the audit being finished in November, we wouldn't escape the regulatory sign-off until January 2023. So is it realistic that we're going to do the audit and get the regulator sign-off by January 2023? It sounds ambitious to me. On the issue of gas safety...
Can I take... Craig's happy to respond now to your first question, and then obviously, we'll answer your following question, and then I'd like to move on, please.
Just with regards to the regulatory notice, when we reported last time, we sent out our expression of interest to 4 audit companies, and we had to obviously procure that correctly. We gained sign-off of that 2 weeks ago, and now the company's been onboarded and they're commencing with that work. So that's why we had the delay there. Once we receive the report back into us by the end of January, we'll then be forwarding that through to regulator. It just depends on their timelines with regards to when they have their next board meeting that they can look at that to then enable the sign-off of the notice.
Thank you, Craig. Yeah, I'll take one more question from you, Ashley.
Yeah, so it's unlikely to be the end of January, though. Okay. For the record, Councillor Reid thinks that if we send the audit report by the end of January, that the regulator will take us out of special measures before the end of January. Yeah. I wanted to move on to the court costs.
Councillor Reid, do you want to respond? Yeah.
What I just hold a moment. Okay, what I said was that the contract for the audit. Okay, if we didn't have to go through procurement, all right. Yes, I know that, and yes, of course I know that. But that takes time, okay? What has been a consideration about the procurement is that the expedience at which the procurement, the bids that we've received, have been able to be evaluated to appoint one. Now, the one that's been appointed is under contractual arrangements that they will deliver by the end of January. Now, that, I've said to you, runs hand in hand with where we are, hopefully, with the regulator. It won't be us that take us out of those conditions. It will be the regulator, but there's no... Through our monthly meetings, we are right up to speed with the regulator, and we have concurred with the regulator that upon that being successful, there is a benchmark that we will move out of the regulation status. So I can't see why, as long as the audit is completed in a timely fashion which is contractually given to us, why we shouldn't be able to do that with the housing regulator very similarly, nearly at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you. You have one more question, and then I really would like to move on to item 8. Thank you.
I've got two more questions. They are...
Can you... Is it on the same item?
Yeah, it's
okay.
On this item.
I'm mindful, we've got a very important presentation next. I'm happy to take two questions.
Yes.
And that is it. Your leader, I understand you're leader of the party, and I have to take your questions, but I do want to give everyone else a chance.
Yeah, may I suggest, Chair, that if Councillor Reid kept his answers a bit briefer, then we might be getting through a bit quicker.
Can we please remain polite to our colleagues? So I'll take your questions. I see that Councillor Reid's got his hand raised, but I will take a question, and then it's up. If Councillor Reid wants to respond to you, then that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll give you both questions together to save time. First of all, the court costs for the gas safety checks. If we go to court, do we have to pay costs? If so, how much? And do we get to recover those costs? At the last meeting, we suggested that local members might be able to go to the properties before the court summons to have a chat with the people. Did that ever happen? And finally, Councillor Reid mentioned £6.2 million, and I think he's...
That's three. Yeah.
No, £6.2 million, he said, on fire doors, windows and the other things. We've only got 6,000 houses, so it's £1,000 per property. How does that £1,000 work out? Are we using the same contractors that we got for quoting the Deepens Leisure Centre? Because it does sound ridiculously expensive.
Councillor Reid, I'm sorry. Councillor Baxter, we're drifting into different territory, which we have got a full agenda. I'll take your first two questions. I will let, I don't know if it's Councillor Reid respond. Your third question, that is in relation to an item 9 later in the agenda, and I am hopeful that that question will get answered. Let's move on. Okay, Councillor Reid.
Okay, right. Just to give you an order of this, Chairman, and it'll be as brief as it can be. First of all, I'd like to say that from the scrutiny workshop, the one thing that was asked, and I fully appreciate, is the value to listen to scrutiny and to contribute and to take on board their contributions. That won't happen without debate and me expanding. So I've made an attempt of that today. I wouldn't like to say any more than that on that one. Now, you've got two questions that have come back to us. What were they? The first one was? Rechargeable costs on gas. Well, that'll be Craig answering that one. And what was the other one? There was two.
It was about the cost, but I think we can...
Craig could answer both of those. Yeah. That's fine, thank you. He's got the information.
Okay, thank you, Craig.
Yeah, obviously as part of our recharge policy that was recently adopted, the court costs and everything will be recharged to the tenant in relation to any costs that we incur as a council undertaking that court process and obviously the delays that are felt through not being able to access the properties. With regards to the capital programme, just very, very briefly, that capital programme amount is a very similar amount to what's been within our capital programme ongoing year on year with regards to capital improvements, and each one of our contractors are procured independently for each stream of work, whether that be roofing, doors, windows or heating systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. That was one question. The other question was actually, when I look back at my notes, was about the involvement in our housing members within the last people that are haven't been compliant. Two things have happened there. One is that the code of housing members' safety and going to people's houses has been asked of me to consider and vigorously uphold the code of conduct and practice for members, and for the avoidance of doubt that we should go into the difficult circumstances and not go into the property itself. And secondly, that's been overtaken because, very fortunately, you will see that the travel of the last remaining gas compliant failures have actually diminished quite considerably, and we really are nearly to the tail end of those now. It's down to a very small number, and so on balance it hasn't been necessary, as I described to my housing members last week, and indeed Councillor Baxter was invited as an attendee. I'm really sorry that British Rail let you down from Lincoln. I do honestly do really sympathise, but just so as you know, that was spoken about then. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Right, I'll move on now to item 8, which is a really positive...
Point of order, Chairman. Sorry.
Point of order. What's your point of order?
We haven't had a vote on the recommendations on the item.
It's not a recommendation, it's for noting only, I think you'll find.
Well, the recommendation is that we note, and so we
agree
that we are noting.
We don't have to vote on it.
Okay.
Sorry.
I was going to ask that, given the discussion we've had about the...
No, it's every meeting, and it is a good item that we get the housing update, but we don't vote on it. We have it every meeting, and it's for noting. We've had a really good discussion, and I want to thank Craig for all his updates.
Indeed we have.
Yeah, thank you.
I was going to ask that, in the light of the discussion that we had about the condition survey and the costs of putting things right that is going to the executive, that the committee requests that it has opportunity to scrutinise those proposals before they go to the executive. The cabinet, sorry.
I'm looking for inspiration.
It is a normal scrutiny process for recommendations to be scrutinised before they go to the executive. That's part of the role of scrutiny. So if there are a £6.2 million proposal going to the executive, I would have thought it's appropriate for that to be scrutinised.
I'll just let Craig respond. He can answer that. Thank you.
The £6.2 million that you're talking about is part of the overall budget setting process for next year, so it will be going through full scrutiny and through full council and cabinet sign-off.
Thank you for confirming that. Item 8 is the Armed Forces and Advocacy and Community Engagement This report provides an update on the new Armed Forces Act and the Armed Forces Covenant, implications of those for South Kesteven District Council and aspirations under the Council's Defence Employer Recognition Scheme Gold Award. If you can please refer to pages 39 to 49 in your agenda pack. I'll just remind you, the committee is asked to recommend to the Chief Executive consideration is given to prioritise the approved staff training budgets to include mandating the Armed Forces e-learning module, that it endorses the suggested approach for the Council's Economic Development Service to assist in promoting the Greater Lincolnshire Defence and Security Network to appropriate defence-related South Kesteven businesses. And finally, support suggesting to the Culture and Visitor Economy and Overview and Scrutiny Committee that recognition of South Kesteven's rich aviation history is included in the Council's Emerging Visitor Economy Strategy. Before I ask for the presentation, I just think today we actually lost our last surviving dam buster, Johnny Johnson, who passed away at the age of 101, and how appropriate that we're going to discuss this very important matter. So I will ask our lovely ladies, Carol Drury, who is our Community Engagement Manager, but the author of the report, Debbie Nichols, who is our Armed Forces Officer, to introduce and detail the report. We haven't got Councillor Annie Mason, she's currently away, but I'm sure Val and Carol will do a sterling job. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. The report before you provides an overview of some of the work undertaken to deliver against the Council's commitment to the Armed Forces Covenant. You will be aware that we have a dedicated Armed Forces officer who is employed by the Council for 1 day a week. That is the aforementioned Debbie Nichols. What's outlined in this report has obviously taken more than 1 day a week to achieve, but during the period this report covers, we were fortunate enough to secure some additional funding through partnership with Rutland County Council, which has allowed Debbie to work some additional days. One of our major achievements this year has been our Defence Employers Recognition Scheme Gold Award. To achieve this award, organisations must go beyond policy and procedure and be able to evidence sustained advocacy for the armed forces, serving veterans and their families. This is a rare honour and we are justifiably proud of that achievement. The Armed Forces Act, which gained royal assent in 2021, has, in the last few weeks, been further bolstered by statutory guidance which we must adhere to. The Act is very focused on a people-first approach. From a district perspective, the Act and guidance address our housing function and seek to ensure our housing policies and procedures are veteran-friendly. The Act doesn't confer any preferential treatment for armed forces personnel, veterans or their families. It does, however, ensure that we're not disadvantaging them in any way with our policy and procedure. This is particularly relevant when considering the recently released census figure revealing we have more than 7,000 veterans resident in our district. Our Armed Forces Officer has worked with housing colleagues to embed the requirements placed upon us through the law. Before I hand over to Debbie, I'd just like to take you through the points in the report that relate to the recommendations that were mentioned by the Chair on page 39 of your agenda pack. The first discusses awareness-raising training to be rolled out across the authority relating to the need to show due regard under the Armed Forces Act 2021. It is so important that officers, no matter what department they work in, are aware of our responsibilities. Details of all of this can be found in paragraphs 2.3 and 2.4 in your report. The second relates to our engagement with the newly created industry-led Greater Lincolnshire Defence and Security Network. This network presents an opportunity through our economic development function to engage with businesses in the district to get them involved with a view to accessing defence-related supply chains and to draw on Ministry of Defence funding to work on innovative projects and products that support the armed forces within our district. More information in paragraphs 2.26 to 2.29 on this. The final recommendation relates to a project currently in its infancy to explore the development of an Arnhem Airborne Forces Trail. This is a project rich in history and the part Sacker Stephen played in that history. We believe it has great potential in relation to our visitor economy. Details 3.1 to 3.4 in your report. The report outlines much more than this. I'm sure you've all had the opportunity to read it, so I won't take up any more of your time. But I would like to hand over now to the officer behind these achievements and aspirations, Debbie Nichols, who will, with your indulgence, take you through a short presentation of images because, as we know, pictures often say much more than words can. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol, and I'll hand over to Debbie. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to tell you a little bit about what may appear as small, but I think is an incredibly important part of my world, basically. I have a very able lieutenant in Jordan who's going to take us through some slides, because, as Carol says, pictures tell us so much more. Jonathan Van Tam would say, next slide, please. That's fine. Okay, this is our Gold Award. National Arboretum was where we received this. The leader came over. We had a really lovely evening. Those who know me will know that I can never walk past an animal. This, of course, is not just any goat. This was Private Derby, the 32nd, the regimental ram of the Mercian Regiment. But it was an amazing evening. So, yes, we have gold. We are currently the only authority in Lincolnshire to hold this Gold Award, so it's something that we should be incredibly proud of, and it allows us to move on to bigger, better things. Next slide, please. How did we get there? Well, we had to do an awful lot, the details of which are in your report. Key to it, however, was actually re-signing of the Armed Forces Covenant. Below... sorry, yes, we've just, yes, there we go, picture of the chamber. It was our own re-signing at the barracks in March of this year. We also have a duty of advocacy to encourage other organisations and companies to sign as well. And the top left is the signing at the Mears in Grantham involving Leisure SK. So, as I say, that's one part of our advocacy. Next slide, please, Jordan. We have a very close relationship now with Prince William of Gloucester Barracks. It's an historic site in Grantham, as you're very well aware. You'll recognise our chairman, pictured actually reviewing reserves as they passed out in a pass-off parade. In the rear is Colonel Buxton, Jonathan Buxton, who's been incredibly welcoming to us during this year, and that's something that I think we can take particular pleasure in. Below right is the scarlet uniform of Chelsea pensioner Colin Thackeray. For those who haven't watched Britain's Got Talent, he won, I think, in maybe 2018, 2019. He is an amazingly charismatic character. As a result of that day, Colin actually came along to our baton relay in Wyndham Park and through Grantham in July. It kind of sums up the value of how these things thread together and how they lead on to other things. He was very popular with the press that day, I have to say. Next slide, Jordan, please. Military observance. Again, it played a key role in our application for gold. And I pick out this particular flag raising because the Armed Forces Day is part of Armed Forces Week. This, to me, has incredible resonance because it really does fly the flag for all the work that we do. those people who attend now know each other by first names. It goes deep into the community, and I think that Armed Forces flag just says so much about what we actually do and how much it means. Remembrance, another key thing. We observe this in major fashion across the district, but these are our military veterans marching, all people that we see on a regular basis at the Veterans Breakfast Clubs. And if anybody's interested in attending, I will give you the dates and you can join me and come and meet some of the people who go along to those meetings. Another slide, Jordan, please. You may know this young man, you may not. His name is Drew Palmer. He works in our housing department. Drew is our Cadet Force adult volunteer. The relevance of Drew is without him, and we don't have any reserves, unfortunately, on the staff at the moment, is we couldn't have actually applied for the Gold Award. Drew has put himself through Institute of Learning and Management qualifications, and this is him at Sandhurst earlier this year, Military Training College, collecting his awards. Bottom left is him holding the certificate which conveys our cadet support. So that Drew Palmer, next time you see him in the corridor, you can shake his hand, because, as I say, without him, we wouldn't have got very far. Next slide, Jordan, please. You'll recognise the gentleman on the left. Councillor Dixon Warren was officially ratified, if that's the right word, by full council in September. He's proving to be a major asset. And I realise unwittingly that I have demoted you, Councillor Dixon Warren, from your last held military rank. My apologies. See me afterwards. Councillor Ward was the previous Armed Forces champion. Dean Ward threw himself massively into fundraising. This was a £10,000 cheque that he presented down at the Heritage Centre for the regiment, the RF regiment at Honington. On that day, he actually received the Commandant General's commendation, because this was part of £50,000 that he has actually raised over the years, all sorts of ways. So our Armed Forces champions are really, really important to us. Next slide, Jordan, please. So indeed is military heritage, and I'm sure you will agree that we can be justly proud. In 2019, we raised £15,000 through crowdfunding to plant a Heroes commemorative orchard in Grantham. It's next to Wyndham Park, 3.5 acres, 75 trees planted to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II. If anybody hasn't been down, I'd be very happy to meet them there and show you the interpretation boards that were included in this funding. Spring blossom is just a joy, so leave it till spring if you want to come down and watch the blossom, and as I say, I will happily show you around. Top right, Machine Gun Corps. For those who don't know, and I'm sure you all do, the heritage there is incredible for Grantham. The men who trained at Belton, who marched through that historic arch, all over the world. Now, earlier this year, the Old Comrades Association of the Machine Gun Corps gathered. This is a picture that we took of them there. They are determined to commemorate the memory of the men who trained and did leave for right across the world, and the dreadful ensuing death toll of 13,791 men who died fighting, having marched through that arch. And I think that's really quite a poignant reminder, and all credit to them for continuing. Next slide, Jordan, please. Arnhem's story is Lincolnshire's story. This is what we're building on for our potential Arnhem and Airborne Forces Trail. We are part of Bomber County. The chairman has recognised now the loss of our last surviving dam buster. But we have two unique aspects which allow us to stand alone. The first is the 1st Airborne Division. And the second is the Armed Forces of Troop Carrier Command, who occupied the major airfields all around Grantham in 1944. 1 million Americans based here in 1944. They carried men of the 1st Airborne to the key battle milestones and supply drops and everything else. So you cannot tell one story without the other. And we're intent on trying to do exactly that. That picture is actually taken at RF Barkston Heath, from where those men flew. In the background you'll see an aircraft there of Troop Carrier Command, Dakota C-47. We want to create this trail in the report of much more detail of exactly what we think it offers. We will have to go out to funding, but we think we're onto a really rich stream here, which is going to pay dividends right across the district in lots of ways that matter to the district authority. We'll update you on progress. We're very much at the feasibility stage at the moment. And the final slide. Thanks to Prince William of Gloucester Barracks, we were able to invite business leaders, community organisations, people we've worked with over the year, educationalists, heritage specialists, to come and join serving members of the army. We drew from 7 Brigade. It wasn't just from the barracks. We drew from all over the Midlands, and it proved the most incredible networking event. That was just last month. The numbers of key conversations and contacts that fell out of it continue to roll in, and just drawing people together under I've called it a friendly umbrella, if you like, a friendly flag, has been so useful. So that's really how I wanted to finish off. That was our last big event, bit more colour, and hopefully that conveys to you some of the, let's call it colour again, of what we've achieved during the year, and I think we've made huge progress. So thank you very much for allowing us to show that presentation, Chairman.
No, thank you, Debbie. That's amazing and so positive. And there's so much hard work has gone into this, both from yourself, and I also want to thank Councillor Dixon-Warren as well. Obviously a huge asset to your wish going forward. So thank you very much. And also thank you, Carol, for introducing it. So has anyone got any comments or questions? Oh, there's lots of hands going up. I think I'll take Hilary first, Hilary Westrop.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much for the presentation. Secondly, it's amazing how it touches many lives. My grandfather was liaison officer to the American troops in Lincolnshire, so I've grown up with this story all my life. And thirdly, if that's it, tonight at 6 o'clock on Radio Lincolnshire, there's a sort of a talk, I think, given by Johnny Johnson, and you probably know about it, but it's 6 o'clock tonight.
Thank you for that, Hilary. Hopefully we can all tune in to this amazing gentleman who we lost. So, Councillor Cleaver, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you for all the hard work and the success of officers and members who've been involved with this. It's lovely to read a success story. Just a couple of points, really, to add to this. It is, of course, the 80th anniversary in May next year of the Dam Busters raid. And I hope that Lincolnshire County Council, because I think there's more to do with it outside of SK, correct me if I'm wrong, than there is within SK, but I hope that that's something that the whole of Lincolnshire can take part in. Something that is of particular interest to me. Also, in relation to this, is an interest in the work of the cadet forces within South Kesteven. I'm very pleased that the Stamford Welland Academy is one of the few state schools in the whole country that actually has a combined cadet force. And it's something that is immensely pleasing to see. It is incredibly well supported. And so I hope that this initiative can link in with the great work that the school is doing to support the cadets. And of course, just to mention in passing, we are also the landlord of the Air Cadets in Stamford. They're actually our tenant. So we also have a relationship with the armed forces community, sometimes as their landlord. And yes, just finally, I just wonder, in terms of the recommendations, looking at the top of the paper, on recommendation 3, would it be appropriate for us to change the word aviation to simply read military, in context of what the whole of number 3 actually says?
Debbie?
In reverse order, when I looked at it, I thought I should have put military heritage. So absolutely agree with you there, particularly as we're talking about the army. The anniversary next year of the dams raid was, of course, coordinated here in Grantham at St Vincent's Hall, and we had pre-COVID been able to organise a series of events there. So post-COVID, moving on to what we're calling living history, we're very much hoping to do something similar next year, as we do know the owner reasonably well through council council circles. Yes, thank you very much for your point about the cadets. We were able to honour a cadet in our SK Community Awards, who a life-saving cadet. So we're very aware of the value that actually contributes. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Debbie. Councillor Dobson, you have a question.
Yeah, thank you both, Carol and Debbie, for this great presentation. Not being a military man myself, but I was very honoured to be able to sign the papers and all the stuff with up at the Grantham Leisure Centre. But I was just signing on 2.4, where you've got here the Warwickshire County Council e-learning training module. And is that going to be rolled out to all staff, or is that something that we're going to be doing here? Also, maybe councillors want to look at it as well.
We're just looking at how best to put that into operation. The reason that it's Warwickshire is that it's the benefit of one of the many networking events and teams and collations of good ideas that we tap into. So we've been able to get this, which would have cost us an awful lot of money to do ourselves. So we are looking at exactly how best to use that, Councillor Dobson, for sure.
Thank you. I've just got a quick question, and then I'll move to Councillor Dilks if there's no other committee members want a question. Carol, Debbie, as far as the business goes, their input, are you able to give an example of what a local business has done to support the armed forces? Is that something you could answer?
We have 2 Gold Award businesses within Grantham itself. One is Recruit Me and the other is an organisation called TMS. We're using them to encourage other businesses to get involved with the employer recognition scheme and sign up. It's part of the action plan for next year, so it's part of our advocacy. And so yeah, it's really on our radar to actually show exactly how they can build in and help exactly what we're doing, if that answers that.
Yeah, that's great. I'll look forward to seeing about that. Thank you. Councillor Dilks.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I declare my interest as coming from a forces family and a former TA company sergeant major. And more importantly, as chairman of our local Royal British Legion. Can I say congratulations to the whole team, Debbie, Carol, and our Armed Forces champion, if I can call you that, sir. Yeah, I mean, what I particularly welcome is the links that we've got with the barracks up the road, and also exploiting the tourism possibilities. I do welcome all of that. And the Armed Forces Covenant is, that is a real step forward that came in some years ago. I know full cross-party support. I know to bring it in. I had the privilege of working for a while with Dan Jarvis. He's now, I think, he's elected mayor of Sheffield. But he was a para major and commanded troops in Afghanistan. If I might say, even before we were there. And was instrumental in sort of pushing that through in himself. But what I come to is, I love the sort of the tourism and the remembrance and everything on that. But what's happening about the mental health of those who served in our, and now live in our patch? What's in the plan for that? How many rough sleepers have we got who are ex-military, do we think, in our patch? What are we doing there? And I did notice, I read it last night, but I can't find it right now. In one of the action plans, it was suggested that if reservists are called up, we'll do what we can to protect their jobs when they come back. I think that's already in legislation and has been for about 30 years. Am I right on that? Yeah. Thank you, though, and congratulations on your Gold Award. I'm sure you'll go on for better things. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dilks. Who wants to respond? Anyone? Debbie.
The Armed Forces Act has three principal strands to it. One is housing, which our colleagues in housing have picked up extremely well. The other is education, and the other is health and mental health. And technically, of course, health is not a direct remit, but through the mental health group, we're able to look at that, Councillor Dilks, and see how best we can actually provide any help at all there. Some of the things that that I've been involved with, for instance, like breakfast clubs, it's a peer support, particularly for ex-military as well, you'll know, to get together and have a chat. And for many of them, that is the principal source of support that they find the most useful. They don't want to be branded in any other way. But what we're looking at particularly also is encouraging doctors to sign up to the GP Veteran Accreditation Scheme, which allows them then to look at the overall health of veterans, getting veterans to acknowledge that they are veterans when they first sign up to a practice. And so without it being our direct responsibility, I think we can bring things to bear on that particular subject.
Councillor Dill.
Thank you ever so much indeed for that. One last point I would just say, and you may be able to help us with publicity, and may I invite you, everyone, to... we've got an event in our British Legion branch in February. Forgive me, I can't remember the date offhand, but I will email you if I may. And it's the national chairman of the Goldfish Club, giving a talk on the Goldfish Club. For those who don't know what the Goldfish Club was, it was started in the Second World War, and it was for survivors of... you automatically became a member if your life was saved by a dinghy. The gentleman who's coming, his life was saved when a Nimrod went down in the North Sea, I believe. I have a particular interest because my father... went down in the Bay of Biscay and spent a week in a dinghy, and only 3 survived out of about a dozen when a Liberator went down. But you would all I'll email you if I can, Debbie, and if you could give it any publicity, I would welcome that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dilks. Councillor Baxter.
Oh, could I apologies, I have realised I haven't completely answered Councillor Dilks. There is a specific remit now within the Health Authority to tackle mental health. It's called, they've renamed it Op Courage, so that in fact it's got more of a military ring. It was called TILS, and it was about early intervention and whatever. And we're trying as best we can to raise awareness of Op Courage, where people can self-refer into. But as I say, that's just come to me now. So the Op Courage is there, and I'll happily point you in that direction. Okay, thank you very much. I have you down very much as part of our special services. You're talking about people being in places before anybody knew they were there. Thank you.
Thank you both. Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. I add my comments to celebrate the military history and remember the military history of this county. I'm fuzzy. I'll try. Okay, that's nicer. Thank you. Yeah, celebrating the military history and remembering where we've been, how we got there, and where we are now as a result of all wars is important. There's a lot about Grantham in the presentation. I'm really grateful for the presentation. It makes these meetings a lot more, I think, interactive and friendly. A lot about Grantham. I'm sure there are lots of things happening like the Stamford Cadet Force across the district, and we need to remember the wider district. For example, in Frognall, I don't know if there's any kind of blue plaque or whatever to remember the Frognall airfield that was part of the World War I operations. My reservation about this agenda item is item 2. I'm nervous. I'm all for getting people into work. I'm all for taking the skills that people have got through military experience and putting them into useful practice in the defence industry and elsewhere. And I think especially we should be promoting people who have spent time in this county as a result of their involvement in the Air Force or other services, who like the county, giving them opportunities to be part of every industry, whether it's agricultural machinery, other technologies, as well as defence-related industries. But the reason why I'm nervous is that we're talking on item 2 about endorsing the strategy for the Greater Lincolnshire Defence and Security Network, and part of that is item 2.29, talking about exhibiting at the DSEI event scheduled in Excel. Make no mistake, that is an arms fair. That is not anything to do with celebrating our military history. It is about the UK defence industry and the MOD. I've no problem with the MOD defending our country. However, selling arms to foreign regimes is not something that this authority should be involved in, and it doesn't do anything for our security. A security fair is a misnomer. It is an arms fair, and we should have nothing to do with it.
Thank you. Your comments noted, Councillor Baxter. I've noted that on the third item to change aviation to military. Thank you, Richard. So if could I have, I'm going to go, there's 3 recommendations, if I could go through one by one. So the first one, which recommends to the Chief Executive consideration given to prioritise the approved staff training budgets to include mandating the Armed Forces e-learning module. Could I have a proposer, please? Yes, how appropriate. Councillor Dixon-Warren. Can I have a seconder, please? Yeah, Councillor Westrop. Thank you. Right, if we could move to the vote. All in favour, please. Against? Is that unanimous? Yeah, thank you. That's great. Passed. So if we can move to the second. So if I can have a proposer and a seconder for the endorsement to the suggested approach for the Council's Economic Development Service to assist in promoting the Greater Lincolnshire Defence and Security Network to appropriate defence-related South Kesteven businesses. Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Dixon-Warren, thank you. And can I have a seconder? Councillor Westrop. If we can move to the vote, all in favour? Against? Was that unanimous? Any abstentions?
Councillor Cleveland, Councillor Moran.
Sorry. Abstain. Yes. Sorry. It's all right. No. Just so I'm clear, abstention, yourself, Virginia, and Richard. Yes. And yeah, lovely. Thank you. And finally, can we now take a vote on suggesting to the Culture and Visitor Economy Overview and Scrutiny Committee that recognition of South Kesteven's rich military history is included in the Council's emerging visitor economy strategy. So a proposer in Richard Cleaver, a seconder in Virginia Ryan. Can I have a show of hands? All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. That's passed. So if we move on now to item 9 is the energy efficiency grant funding. This report seeks to update the committee, so it's updating only, on the energy efficiency measures being delivered within the Council's housing stock with the support of grant funding that has been awarded to deliver these improvements. Also, to inform the committee of the recent submission to the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund by the Council. So if you'd like to refer to pages 51 to 63 in your agenda pack. I'm mindful of the time, 20 to 4. If we need to take a break after this agenda item, I'll listen to the members here today. But anyway, we'll get on with item 9 if that's okay, and I will ask Councillor Robert Reid to give the presentation, ably supported by our Assistant Director of Housing, Craig. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. This will take me a few moments in the journey of delivery in explaining agenda item 9 for you. The paper is an information report to your good selves at Rural ONS to provide an insight into the energy efficiency measures being delivered to our tenants. These measures are being delivered through 2 grants funds and are the key to helping our residents in relation to increasing utility costs. It meets 2 of the Council corporate plan priorities: a clean and sustainable environment and housing that meets the needs of all residents. The first of the funding schemes the Council was awarded is the Local Authority Delivery Phase 2. This is match funded for improvements of properties over 2 years, and the Council have enabled a drawdown of a grant of £770,800 so far. It's good to share with you the Council have delivered improvements to 164 properties. These improvements have been delivered across 2 main heating types: electric storage heating, 78 installations, and air source heat pumps, 86 installations. The other funding scheme is the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund, where a bid of over £7 million has been submitted, the grant element equalling £3.4 million. If successful, the works will enable 333 properties to be delivered. This is something I've already mentioned earlier this afternoon, Madam Chairman, and is referred to at 2.16. The timeline from the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy advises early March in 2023 for notification if the Council is successful. A further update, of course, will be delivered to the committee later on in the year and when I have further to report. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I look forward to learning of interpretation of this before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Can I ask committee members if you have any questions, please? Councillor Ray Wotton. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Reid, are those houses that are fitted air source heat pumps proving economical to run? Thank you.
I'll refer to my director to give an accurate response on that and to be concise. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. They are more efficient with regards to the energy that they consume to provide the heat into the property. We have identified that there are some education / training needs for the tenants, because they do work in a different way to storage heaters and gas-fired central heating systems. So we have compiled a user guide for those to be shared by the tenant. I think it's very difficult for the tenants to probably understand the total benefit of those with the rising fuel costs. But we are very hopeful that they are far more efficient in heating the properties than generally the storage heaters or the solid fuel systems that they have replaced.
So you hope. So is it cheaper to run than our ordinary heat system?
In comparison to the systems that we've removed, then yes, they are more efficient and they are cheaper to run.
Yeah, I just want to report back that one of my residents who had some very outdated heating using coal, etc., he's very happy with his new heat source heating. And this gentleman's in his 80s, so it's good to have a bit of positive feedback. So thank you to the Housing Department. Richard Cleaver, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm very interested in the decarbonisation fund bid. It's interesting to see that we've got 330 properties that we need to upgrade. Presumably those ratings have been derived or informed by the condition survey we've been talking about earlier, I'm guessing. So they're pretty up to date, of course, therefore. Yeah, I did wonder. And I mean, just really an open question, just for information. How do we derive a cost from that? I mean, what level of detail do we go property by property to work out where we get to that large amount of money that we've bid for? Do we just take a kind of an assumed amount per property, or is it more detailed than that? And finally, again, perfectly, really just an innocent question. Why are we only going to trying to get to C rating? Is B or above unachievable? Is that just something that is just beyond the realms of doable? Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. If you want to respond.
Fantastic questions, Councillor. Basically, all of the properties that we've identified have had an EPC completed alongside the stock condition surveys that have been completed over the past 12 to 18 months. The bid process was a very involved process. We brought E.ON on board to help us with that. So with every property that we've identified, utilising the stock condition information to understand the property kind of construction type, existing heating systems and existing insulation, we've built bespoke packages around each one of those properties to bring them up to a C or better. The goal of C, it's a difficult one, really. I mean, if we wanted to try and push for a B, then that would obviously invoke even further costs on those properties. I suppose the main reason why we're pushing for a C at present is that there will be regulation in the near future where we will need to bring all of our properties up to a minimum of an EPC C before we can re-let them once they're void. And obviously there are cost floors within the bidding system, which basically prevent us spending more than about £18,000 per property in energy efficiency improvements. So that's where we've derived the data from. I hope that helps.
Does that help, Councillor Cleaver? Jolly good. Any more questions from committee members? Councillor Dilks.
Thanks, Madam Chairman. Thanks ever so much for the report. And it was just, and I think some of this has probably been answered, but do I take it that all of those that have been upgraded on the scheme, on the heating, were on, clearly they were on more expensive heating. Were they all on coal or solid fuel? If not, you know, how were they chosen if that's not the case? And I really welcomed Councillor Wotton's question. That was really the basis of my question is, it's not just now, but it's all, you know, will we be looking at the results and the performance of those systems on a longer term basis, perhaps, you know, through surveying and really because, you know, air source heat pumps, we hear a lot about them, but, you know, that they can, I'm told, take up a lot of electricity sort of getting there and may not actually be as efficient as first thought. I don't know the answer to that. I'm interested to know. And then finally, you mentioned, I think Craig mentioned insulation there. I just wonder whether when we get the housing stock report, does that include a sort of a state of you know, insulation generally and specifically on the council's housing stock, because insulation is you know, as important, I'm sure, you know, as the sources of heating. I hope that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Predominantly the replacements that we completed under LAD 2, where we've installed electric storage heaters, that was kind of a like-for-like replacement, where we had ageing, inefficient storage heaters. Obviously, they're all off-gas, off-grid properties with regards to gas supply. The air source heat pumps tended to be those solid fuel installations that we've then upgraded. There were a number of storage heater upgrades that we did air source heat pump, but obviously you have to install a full wet system for the air source heat pump. With regards to insulation, as part of the stock condition surveys, all of the current insulation properties within, all of the insulation mechanisms within those properties are quantified. We did also complete a full EPC on all of our properties when we did the stock condition survey, which was additional cost at the time, but it's obviously provided us with very key pertinent data with regards to the energy efficiency of each of our properties. So any future additional insulation requirements can be easily identified from that stock condition information and EPC. I think that hopefully answers your questions.
Councillor Reid, do you want to add to that?
Thank you very much, Chairman. Good suggestion about having a review down the line of those that have been installed on the air source heat pumps. I mean, I don't think the government would be giving a grant towards them if they weren't energy efficient. However, a review of how they perform, I think, is a good idea, and thank you very much for that. I think what's really dear to my heart, and has been ever since I took over housing, is the number of solid fuel properties that we still have, and to see these grants supporting us moving away from them really for those tenants is, you know, is really good practice. I think the other thing that you touch on, Councillor Dilks, is the word condensation, and indeed loft insulation, and of course that is something which is very often the cause of mould, primary reason for mould, and of course that's something that's very prevalent at the moment. So without opening a debate on mould at the moment, that is where we are on that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for those questions, Councillor Dilks, and certainly moving forward, we will ensure that is in our actions. Thank you. So, unless we have any more questions, how do you feel about taking I'm only going to suggest a 5-minute break just for a leg stretch. So, could I'll propose that we have a 5-minute break. Do I have a seconder? Lots of seconders. I'll take Ray, Councillor Wotton. So if we could try and be back in here just before 4, please, that would be great.